Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, good morning, Spaceship Earth. Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you could always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, the Octurian Starseed, and today is Thursday, September 10th, 2015. We have a great show lined up for you today, joined by a very special guest, Rebecca Hardcastle Wright. And I also want to talk about a really awesome show we'll be doing tomorrow. We're going to do a special tribute for 9/11, for the families of 9/11, for the horrible terrorist attack that happened on 9/11 about 15 years ago. So we're going to have Peter Sterling on and Richard Schulman, and we're going to do custom music pieces and send out the vibration of love and light for the families around the world and for the families of 9/11. So it's going to be an awesome show. I hope everyone can tune in tomorrow. As well as you can check out starseedradio.com for more information. We always have our Twitter feeds going with live news updates, and also from Ryan Matthew Durnick from Bellwether Post. And if you haven't received our free piece of Elite Shungite, give us a call or go to starseedtechnologies.com, or you can call toll-free anytime at 888-400-2328. Again, that number is 888-400-2328. You can call anytime, 24/7. If someone does not pick up, just please leave us a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Again, we're handing out free Elite Shungite. It's an amazing quantum healing stone. I want you to have this stone. Please call us. We've been giving it out for about 6 months now. I'm going to continue to give it out because we've heard nothing but amazing stories from it. I drink Shungite water every day. You can hear it. That's Shungite in my water bottle. And it's amazing, not just from hearing it from me, but from many guests over the last few months that have called and just have raved about it. So please give us a call, 888-400-2328, or check starseedtechnologies.com. And we'll also send you some information on free energy devices, how to build them. I have about 15 PDF files I would love to send you as well. And with that, we're going to get started with the show, but first we're going to do our daily quote. And our daily quote goes a little something like this. All we got to do is stand up, and it's game over. Short and sweet. All we got to do is stand up, and game over. And it's game over. That quote comes from End Spire. And I'll post that up on starseedradio.com and also on our Facebook page. With that, we're going to get started with the daily download and see what's happening in the world today and how Mother Gaia is acting. And for that daily download, we're welcoming Ryan Matthew Durnick. Good morning, Ryan. How you doing today?
Very well, Jonah. How you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. It's Thursday, almost the weekend, and hump day is over, and we're more than halfway through the week. Lots of news all over the place, so let's jump into how's Mother Gaia responding today with Earth changes.
Well, solar activity is slim to nil. They're expecting a 1% chance of any kind of solar flare or geomagnetic flare that could be headed toward the Earth. But in regards to earthquake activity, there was a 4.5 just recently today at 95 kilometers southeast of Unalaska Island, Alaska. And that comes on the heels of a larger earthquake in the area, 5.9 magnitude, about 92 kilometers southeast of Unalaska, Alaska. So if you do the math, they're roughly in the same location. And then there was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, 65 kilometers northwest of Guerra, Venezuela. A 4.9 magnitude earthquake, 76 kilometers southwest of Lata Solomon Islands. A 5.4, 26 kilometers west of Al-Qaeda, Yet Kiran, Munjan in Afghanistan. And a 4.6 magnitude earthquake, 14 kilometers southwest of Guiran, northern Mariana Islands. Now, As we've been talking about the last couple of days, in regards to you hear about all these earthquake activity they're talking about out west. There's going to cause a domino effect once the Cascadia subduction ridge goes off. Well, now experts recently, yesterday evening, suggested that Utah is unprepared for the possibility of a large earthquake. And they said that the research concluded that if a 7.0 magnitude quake hit the Wasatch Fault line, it would cost the state about $33 billion in economic losses, and as well as about 2,500 fatalities and 9,000 injuries. And the research is being presented to the state's lieutenant governor on September 21st, and scientists said they hope that legislators will invest in better infrastructure to protect the communities and make sure that loss of life is averted, so that this knowledge is put out. Because that's basically what you and I do, Jonah, is putting out knowledge, increasing consciousness, increasing vibration.
And raising awareness, because, you know, even though we cover earthquakes and stuff and fault lines, and the reason we cover that is because Mother Gaia, the planet, is changing, and she's growing, and she's breathing, and if you're not aware of this stuff, if a big event happens, which one is going to happen sooner or later, we know
Yes.
it always happens. It's planet Earth, spaceship Earth, we're flying through the galaxy, you know, things happen. You got to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you won't be able to make the most, you know, educated, correct, intuitive decision you can, which is why you want to know as much information as you can so you can make the best decision for you and your family if a big event happens, or if even a smaller event, whatever happens. So
definitely
just raising awareness to be aware.
And in regards to the ongoing geologic activity, seismic activity in reference to Cotopaxi's volcano in Ecuador, when this volcano does erupt, and scientists are saying that it definitely will erupt, 400 people so far have for some time been evacuated, and more than 27,200 students have been relocated to schools outside of the danger zone. But when this does erupt, it has the potential to harm more than 300,000 people. And it could happen without warning and take out half the city in just 30 minutes, Jonah, which is mind-blowing if you think about how strong and how ever-changing the Earth and its dynamics are. And on to more other news in regards to Earth changes. More than 100,000 people have fled in Japan after a once-in-50 years flood from their homes. Helicopters were swirling over the muddy waters, rescuing people from the roofs off their homes. 17 were injured. And some areas received double the usual September rainfall in just 48 hours from tropical storm Atau, which swept across Japan's main island of Honshu. And some places the rivers swelled over their banks and burst their banks. And so there's many people that are missing in these areas. And north of Tokyo, some people are feared trapped when the engulfed waters hit subdivisions there. Further 800,000 people were at one point advised to evacuate after the officials issued pre-dawn warnings of a once-in-a-half-century rains to 5 million people in areas east and north of Tokyo. So as we know, Japan is no stranger to disasters. We have the ongoing fallout, if you will, from the Fukushima disaster that was caused by the 2011 earthquake and subsequent tsunami that is still causing not only the local environment to be reeling, because you have a danger zone.
What? What's it called?
Fukushima?
Fuki who? Fukushima. Oh, that's still happening? I didn't know Fukushima was still leaking deadly radiation to the whole planet. Thank you for bringing that back into everyone's awareness, Ryan.
No, you're welcome, because a lot of people forget, and understandably, that we're bombarded by such garbage news out there, and people are more concerned with Dancing with the Stars and being entertained than being informed. But as we know yesterday,
Dancing with the what? What was that? Dancing with who? That's the last thing people should be watching, is dancing with anything right now.
Right, exactly. Well, stock attempted gains despite uncertainty ahead of the Fed meeting. They traded a narrow range Thursday, attempting to shake off uncertainty among investors, as we've been talking about the possibility of the Federal Reserve's key meeting next week, which they may raise interest rates. If that happens, that is basically the reason there's been jitters in the market. They say it's China. They say the currencies are weak. All countries have been devaluing their currencies for quite some time. And even though the data front on the initial jobless claims fell 6,000 to a seasonally adjusted 275,000 for the week that ended September 5th, the Labor Department saying on Thursday it was the 27th straight week that claims remained below 300,000. Well, the books are cooked, okay? There's a lot of people that stop looking for jobs after they keep getting rejected. And I just want people not to give up, but to realize, like, the labor statistics, those statistics are totally discombobulated. You can go and check independent analysts saying that those are not true numbers. And so people have to just keep in mind that just
You mean the books are cooked like every other corporation that we have?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the revolving door with like companies like Monsanto's, hey, go work for the government. But yeah, everything's cooked essentially. I don't know if you heard about this yesterday, Jonah. A video journalist was fired after she apparently kicked and tripped refugees in Hungary, which is absolutely disgusting if you ask me. This woman, I'm glad they fired her at the very least, but it just shows how unconscious some people are. And according to multiple media outlets, the camera woman is Petra Laszlo of Hungary's N1 TV. On Tuesday, N1 TV released a statement on Facebook saying the woman in the video had been fired, and Hungary lies among a popular migrant route. I want to call it not a migrant route, a refugee route between Turkey and Germany. They keep every news report mostly keeps saying they're migrants, and that causes that's a wordplay. You're making them seem like they're migrating birds or something. They're fleeing for their lives. Okay, they're fleeing for their lives. So Petra Laszlo, you are. I know that I think she's Game of Thrones.
Oh, I was gonna say, do we have our official person Game of Thrones person of the day?
Petra Laszlo is definitely the Game of Thrones of the day.
Petra Laszlo.
Yes, this journalist. I'm glad they fired her. And finally, in regards to escalating tensions, Russia is sending ships and aircraft and forces to Syria, according to U.S. officials. They sent 2 tank landing ships, additional aircraft to Syria in the past day or so, and has deployed a small number of forces there. U.S. officials said on Wednesday, in the latest signs of a military buildup that has put Washington on edge. The 2 U.S. officials who spoke with Reuters on conditions and other associated foreign presses on conditions of anonymity said the intent of Russia's military moves in Syria remain unclear. Well, we have a lot of superpowers doing
something better happen over in Syria. I mean, they better fix something. It's out of control.
And at the same time, you have Russia, China, and the United States having massive, having secretive troop movements. Most people don't realize this in the Arctic, trying to take control of lands for what? It's all about resources. It's just one big monopoly board game to these mega power countries.
I just pulled up Petra Laszlo's memes here on Google, and you can clearly see how she just kicks this refugee. It's unbelievable. She
kicks a little girl, and she trips a father running with his 4 or 5 year old daughter.
Yeah, you can see her kicking the girl. She must be 10 years old. She's literally kicking this little girl. Yeah. And the lady definitely falls over her. She does a face plant right into the ground.
Yeah.
So, she's definitely Game of Thrones person of the day. Ryan, thank you so much for reporting from the Daily Download. Please check out Ryan's articles. He's always posting up on bellwetherpost.com, or you can go to starseedradio.com where we have his Twitter feed. Ryan, thank you so much for your service and reporting on the news all the time.
Thank you, Jonah.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to jump to our special guest of the show. We have Rebecca Hardcastle Wright, Ph.D. She is the founder of the Institute of Exoconsciousness, whose mission is to research and apply the abilities of human consciousness sourced in extraterrestrial experience. She created the concept of exoconsciousness, which is the study of extraterrestrial origins, dimensions, and abilities of human consciousness. Rebecca's signature is bridging consciousness, science, and ET experiencers. Her work encourages us to explore the question, do humans have innate ability to experience extraterrestrial contact? And if so, how does it manifest, and what are the implications for our species and our planet? Excellent questions. With that, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How are you?
I'm well, and thank you for having me, Jonah. And thank you for that wonderful news report, Ryan.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we dubbed that the Daily Download, where we just go over the headlines just so people are aware of what's happening, and if they're really interested, they can go Google and search and learn on their own what's going on in the world. So it's a very important segment to be aware of what is happening.
That's very cool. Congratulations. I like it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. And honestly, it came from, when I dove in and had my awakening 6, 7 years ago, and I dove into the New Age and spiritual community. When I started talking about Fukushima 4 years ago when it happened, and, a lot of people didn't want to hear about that. A lot of people were like, oh, I don't want to hear about it. It's lowering my vibration. And I thought back just that something didn't resonate with people not wanting to know more information. And I look at like a Jedi master or any type of master where you want to be aware of all your surroundings and you want as much information as you can so you know how to navigate through your environment and your world. And it's all of our world. So I think it's very important people are at least aware of the headlines, whether they think it's fear or bad or good news, whatever that is, just to be aware. I think that's important.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I love that Jedi master allegory, because that's exactly what exoconsciousness is about. It's about not closing your eyes, but being, aware of who you are and actually who you might be and what your extraterrestrial contact means in your daily life and in your surroundings and in this world of a majority of people that are not aware of any kind of extraterrestrial presence. So.
And Rebecca, if you would let's start the interview. If you could talk about how did you get to the point where you even came up with this new exoconsciousness word and the study of that. Would you tell us the background, please? Did you have an awakening? What was that path like to get there?
Well, it was a lifetime, quite frankly. I was a childhood experiencer, very common, age of 3. I had a lot of ET experiences. I had a lot of psychic experiences. I had experience that we would call shamanistic experiences, where I would go down into the earth and do work, energy work as a child. I was very aware of that. Beings within the earth, energy flows within the earth. And then I got to be, later elementary school age, let go of that, figured out that I wasn't fitting in. I needed to make some changes. And then I still kept it with me. I had a lot of ET visitation as a child, when up on the ships, and just really classic kind of experiences that are very common, quite frankly. And then when I was in Phoenix, I was part of an ET experiencer group with Dr. Ruth Hover. She was part of John Mack's peer group, the group that was put together out of Harvard to examine anomalous phenomenon. Leo Sprinkle was part of that, Ruth Hover, John, it's several other people, but it was a very small group, and they worked together in, how do we nurture, how do we empower ET experiencers? And Ruth had this amazing library. She's since passed over, but I just want to put a shout out to her in the universal consciousness, because she was so instrumental in my life. And what happened with Ruth was I was able to put together my experiences with a database of knowledge. And I taught in one of the first ufology courses in the nation at Scottsdale Community College there. And I just was doing, really beginning to work in the field professionally. And actually, it was one morning, I was lying in bed, and I was a single mom and trying to work full time and take care of my kids and get my doctorate and get certified in different healing modalities. I was really busy. And all of a sudden, I just got this word, exoconsciousness. It just was given to me. That's like I knew it was given to me, but yet it came from within me that I knew that was going to be my life work. And so ever since then, my path has taken a lot of different twists and turns. I worked for a while with Dr. Edgar Mitchell and his, you were talking about 0 point energy. I worked with his Quantrek group for about 6 years, and that's really why I moved here to Washington, D.C. I'm no longer with them, but I'm very interested in all forms of energy healing, energy empowerment, energies that we don't even know about yet, and extremely interested in ET experiences and consciousness science. So when I was with Edgar, I had the chance to really be a part of that international group of consciousness science people, as opposed to who were trying to do what you're doing, working in the field of consciousness. Not so much, though some of them are, Stuart Hameroff and Roger Penrose and whatever, working more into the brain, but trying to move our our human conception of consciousness into a different lane of understanding. So that's what Exoconsciousness is about. One of the things that I'm very dedicated to via Exoconsciousness is to be a complementary field within the field of ufology, which I've been in for decades now, to be in that field of ufology, to offer the consciousness perspective. Traditional mainline ufology, as you both know, has been very wedded to all kinds of military, government, and intelligence sources. And that's the source we always go to. That's the whistleblower that we want the inside information from. It's been a very, very managed field by the government because of that. And we, as ufologists and as extraterrestrial experts, have really bought into the management in a sense, even though we didn't mean to. Maybe that's exactly what's happened, and we've become sort of a repository for disinformation frequently, and we are always just walking through a thicket of trying to, that classic illusion of the wheat from the chaff. We're always trying to separate out, what's reliable, what's not. But it just came to me that, in a sense, what's happened for 70 years in ufology is that we've become our sources. You just can't keep walking down that rabbit hole of government, intelligence, and military and not become like them, and not think like them, and not have a worldview similar to what they have. And so I felt with Exoconsciousness, it was a time to say, wait a minute, what if we looked for different sources for our information? What if we looked to experiencers? What if we look to consciousness science? What if we look to healers that are bringing in a universal consciousness through their work, or spiritual practitioners? It seems to me like that's a source that has a lot more reality and validity today, as opposed to those traditional sources. Now, that's not to say that it's not going to continue, with military, government, intelligence, but it can, move in a new direction also. And I think that's what Exoconsciousness offers.
I think that's a great, and thank you for that story and explanation, Rebecca. I think it's great that you brought up, the real science, which is the technologies and the science we were not taught in school: 0-point energy, kinetic energy, electromagnetic energy, kinetic energy, quantum energy. I wasn't taught that in science. Those are the type of energies that Nikola Tesla and many others dealt with, that discovered ultimate quantum power from the quantum vacuum. I mean, we can power the whole planet in 1 foot of cubic space, literally. And Exoconsciousness, how I see it, is bringing that information to the mainstream, to the public. And what you said, it brings validity, because we all know, if you look back in history, every tribe on the planet knew we came from the stars. They weren't all making up the same story. They knew the star systems they came from. All the ancient sites are aligned to star systems. I mean, the facts and the proof are riddled everywhere on this planet that most life, and science just came out last week with octopus DNA, doesn't even come from this planet. It's off planet. So there's many, studies and science proving what you're talking about is true. There's validity to it. We have whistleblowers that came out. Eisenhower met with ETs. Hitler met with ETs. There's documented many encounters with ETs in exchange for technologies. So the list goes on and on and on. And I think exoconsciousness and what you're bringing, what you brought, is some of the real science based upon factual stuff, not a science based upon just building blocks of life, leaving out very important building blocks like quantum and other types of energy that we weren't taught in school. And it's really a gap bridging. When you talk about experiencers, there's over 3 million Americans that have reported being abducted. That's more than 1% of the population. And that's reported being abducted. Think about how many people haven't reported that had this traumatic experience or maybe a beautiful experience where they don't feel they have to report it. So I really would like to get into some of your experiences, Rebecca, for the listeners out there that have not had interaction with ETs, that have not been on board ship, and things like that. We're going to take a quick commercial break here in just a minute, and when we get back, maybe we can talk about one or two of those experiences you had, because many guests over the years have had experiences. I've had my own experience, and experiences seeing ETs craft over the years and at different locations. So it's important that people hear the story so they can relate to that, because many people have seen the same similar stories, but aren't comfortable with sharing them because it's not mainstream yet and it's still sort of taboo to talk about this stuff. But the reality of it is the factual data to back this up is everywhere. All the ancient tribes, all the indigenous knew this stuff. This is not new information we're bringing. It's old information, and we're just bringing it back in a newer and hip way, like you're doing and like what I'm doing. And we're having fun with it, and it's exciting because we know it's truth. And we bring that to the table, and you're doing that through Exoconsciousness, which is an amazing topic that I'm sure very soon will be mainstream. So hang on right there. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're joined by Rebecca Hardcastle Wright talking about Exoconsciousness. We'll be right back after these messages.
In this world of calamity, dirty looks and grudges and jealousy.
The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free.
What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers.
We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
That is correct. That's from one of our star brothers, Mr. David Icke. So true. We're joined by Rebecca Hardcastle Wright from Exoconsciousness.com and having an amazing conversation talking about what is ET interaction, what is the role of ET intelligence on the planet, what is the history of ET intelligence on the planet. And I think if you look at the facts like we talked about before the break, you'll see it is everywhere on this planet. There have been many great civilizations we have not known anything about, we haven't been told about, and the proof is just everywhere. So we're very excited to have Rebecca on the show. Rebecca, before we went to break, I asked maybe if you could share an experience or two to listeners out there that haven't had interaction with ETs. A lot of people think a lot of the interactions are fearful or they're being abducted by grays, which may have happen, and we know those do happen, but a lot of and most encounters are not bad encounters. They're actually good ones. So if you would maybe share a story or two of your personal encounters.
Sure, I'd love to. First of all, I'd like to say, just to sort of preface this, that a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of your listeners and a lot of your audience we're all aware that, something's wrong. And we seem to have taken, a wrong turn, whether it's technology, whether it's, we're all going into some kind of an Apple prison with, the Apple technology to fit every different profile of person, or, nanotechnology that goes in through our clothing, or Google that's watching us day and night. We know something's wrong, and until we can begin to acknowledge the fact that we have had extraterrestrial experiences, that we have had psychic contact with beings who are benevolent and who are guiding us, I feel like that is the one path out of this feeling like something's wrong. And I like to call it becoming an exoconscious human, where living, it's not like the technology's not going to go away, but what we're going to do is become an expanded consciousness species, aware of our connections with extraterrestrial beings, which will allow us then to really metamorphose into a different type of living, a different type of being. And that's really what I'm all about here. So sure, I'd like to share some experiences. I'll give you one, I guess I would call it, after the word of exoconsciousness came to me, the phrase, I think exoconsciousness is a living thing, quite frankly. When that came to me, I began to have a lot of what I would call anomalous phenomenon around me. And this was as an adult. Now, as a child, it was different. And maybe because I was a child, it just came naturally to me. I didn't really analyze it and diagnose it and dissect it. But, as an adult, as a mother raising a family, I was very well aware that this was an anomalous phenomenon. And I went through a period when I had a lot of orb phenomenon. And I know a lot of your listeners probably have orb phenomenon. And the orbs would literally come around me and talk to me and buzz me and check on me and fill up my house with their energy. And then I went from that period into a very interesting period where I started to go back to star school. Now, I went to star school as a child, and I have some memory of star school as a child, what happened to me there. But as an adult, I would lie in bed and literally three-dimensional hieroglyphics would press down through the ceiling of my bedroom, and I would be schooled by these hieroglyphics and these energy signatures that would come down through the ceiling. And that was a very meaningful time for me. I think it was information that was implanted into my consciousness in different ways, and just gradually sort of birthed itself and emerged at different points in my life. And quite frankly, I think it's still emerging. And then during that time, of course, I did have extraterrestrial visitation. I'm what I call a Heinz 57 experiencer. I've always had experiences with a lot of different beings. I've, had experiences with the mantis beings. I had experience with the reptilians. I had experience with grays, with, tall grays, with, the hooded figures. I've had experiences with the figures that kind of look like big refrigerators. I've had experiences with beings that look like snakes. Just a whole plethora of different beings that I've always been aware of. And now, as an adult, right now in my life, I've transitioned to a point where I'm living, I'm working, I go to yoga, I cook dinner, I make the bed in the morning, I have children, and yet, amidst all of that, I'm aware of the extraterrestrial presence constantly communicating with me all the time. And I'm not only aware of it, but I deliberately choose to enrich their communication with me at the same time that I enrich my knowledge that I am extraterrestrial in nature. So being exoconscious doesn't mean that you're objectively separate from that ET experience, but it means that you are, in some cases, biologically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally one with that being.
Well, thank you for that experience, explanation, and the history, because you're right. Many people and people I've talked to have experiences, but they don't even know what they are, and a lot of times they rub it off as, oh, it was a dream, or it was this or that, and don't even really pay attention to it, because a lot of times our own brains are in disbelief. I remember when I first had my sort of shock awakening about 7 years ago. I had several experiences in a week where I collapsed into just a frequency, and I was a frequency, and I came back and I came out of my body and I astral traveled. I put my hand through granite, through matter, and I was having these experiences specifically, I believe, to tell my own brain that what I'm experiencing is real, and who I just found out I am is real, which was a starseed. And that's why I say Jonah Bolt, the Arcturian starseed, my soul, my essence, my spark originated from the star system of Arcturus, like many of us from all over the star systems. And the ancients knew this information. You know, they built their sacred pyramids and sites directly to the star systems where their spark of energy had come from. The whales, the dolphins, I mean, they dig into the research of it and the history of these stories and tribes and Sanskrit and all the written evidence. It's an amazing story, and I think that's what people really need now, is the new human story. We've talked about this on the show. What is our next new story? And I think it is moving into understanding and knowing and really believing that we are greater than what we've been told and taught. It's really what I say, self-empowerment, and that's what the show is about. It's self-empowerment. If people realize that what you say and what you feel and what you project out of your mouth projects into your reality, and you create that, that's a god and goddess. That's what we all are. And if people really knew that, we wouldn't have any of the mess that it's in right now with these stupid wars and all this other crap that's going on. It's really that simple. It's understanding how powerful each individual is on this planet. And if we could bring that wave of awareness to people, which is what you're doing and what I'm doing, then we really are going to create something beautiful and great. And I think we're on that path, because there's a lot of people waking up, and there's a lot of people realizing. I have priests that call this show that are like, my third eye is buzzing, and I've been told that's the devil. And there's like such a big misconception of just what energy is and what your pineal gland is and what's really happening. But when you have priests and good old Christian folk and Muslim and Jewish folk calling the show and asking questions like that, I'm like, wow, there really is something happening. And that's the proof, is in each person, each listener hearing this and trying to understand more about what we're talking about. That's the self-empowerment. That's why I always say, don't listen to what we're saying. Go search it and Google it and YouTube it and learn it for yourself, so you have that understanding. That is the only thing I could really be a teacher of, is to help you teach yourself. And that's what I think you're doing with Exoconsciousness, is bringing that teaching to the mainstream, to the forefront. When you talk about experiences, what do you think these different experiences are for? People hearing the story, I'm listening, you're having all these experiences, you're going to star school. Why do you think you versus other people are being contacted? Is it because your role you're playing? Is it the information you're bringing? Why do you specifically think you are having so much contact versus some people that may not have any contact?
Well, I don't know if I would say that my experiences are necessarily anything special. I think what we're talking about here is just that I'm conscious of them. I think as we move on into, letting go of chasing the government, the intelligence, and the military, and start to really look, as you put it so beautifully, at what our next human story is going to be, I think people are going to start saying, maybe I am an exoconscious human. Maybe there are parts of me that I'm now ready to bring into awareness. Maybe in childhood I did have an experience. I mean, I have people that I just meet casually that maybe just because they sort of sense something in me. I mean, they'll say things to me like, I'm a walk-in. I had a walk-in experience. I don't know what to do with it. And here, most of the people that have had situations like that and experiences, they literally walk around and don't talk to anybody about it. They keep it to themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Conscious, but it's very interesting that you brought up religion because I have I went to seminary. I went to seminary, Boston University School of Theology. I'm ordained in the Methodist Church. I had a lengthy, deep background in religion and also spirituality, and I think it's very important what's happening right now with the priests that are calling you and religious people who are reaching out to you. I think it's an important dialogue to have because religion has always talked about transcendence. Religion has always talked about moving to another way of being and releasing who we used to be. We're coming to a time where we can talk about the grand and glorious exoconscious human, or the new human story, as you put it. And the reality is we're going to have to let go of a lot as we move down the road. It's kind of like, when the pioneers crossed America, you had to take some stuff out of the wagon. Maybe it was your dresser that somebody in your town card. Maybe it was a piano. Maybe it was a trunk of clothing. It's things that you had to leave behind because they didn't fit where you were headed. And that's what we're going to be going through as a race and as a human race. And it's going to be an exciting time. It's going to be a confusing time also. But there's going to be a lot of release going on. Make no mistake about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I think that the veil since December 21st, 2012, the energy is totally on right now. It's totally manifestation to the max, and I think people just haven't realized that. I was at Chichen Itza there, and for the end of the Mayan calendar, which is really the beginning, this is the time of no time, and I really have felt the energy shift and many others since then, and it's just really us telling the new story, Rebecca. It's us telling them the good news, like, hey, we could really come together and manifest a new world right now. The light is on, and that's where we're at, and the threshold of humanity, and it's so exciting because I know that to be true. I see that. I feel that. Many of us feel that, and it's just, I've always been saying it's one by one is how we awaken. If I reach one listener each day, if I talk to one person each day and just spark them up and light them up to go do their own research and start that spiritual journey towards self-empowerment and self-realization, then we're all doing our work, and it's growing in the millions, hundreds of millions, around the planet that are just waking up. Look at the Burning Man Society, the burners out there. Shout out to all the burners. I mean, they're doing it. When I went to Burning Man, that system, no credit cards, no money, it's a gift economy, that blew my heart chakra wide open to just experience living like that. I've never my whole life in 36 years had been to a place where food and love and everything was provided for just by being you. I mean, and that really is a society we can create. And Dave McConville from the Buckminster Fuller Institute, the president, and many others, including myself, which is helping out, have formed a new council with Burning Man to do sustainable Burning Man projects around the planet, where we have these tribal villages in action all year round, sustainable. And that's what I feel is happening. Tribalism is coming back to the planet. We're doing plant medicines more. Ayahuasca is very big now. People are waking up to our ceremonial heritage, our roots, our real foundation, our real history. And we see that across the board, from ayahuasca being popular to the transformational festivals that are in the hundreds now. There's hundreds of millions of people going to transformational festivals. Why? Because they're hungry to learn. They're are hungry to learn a new way, learn permaculture, learn this new way of living. And we could see that. I could feel that. So it's very, very, very exciting times, like you said. Talk about, if you can, Rebecca, some of the upcoming stuff you have going on. You're involved with a lot of exciting things, conferences. Give the listeners some of the exciting upcoming things you're involved with, if you would, please.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to be speaking at and participating in Paulo Harris's. She's her Star Works conference in Laughlin, Nevada. Paulo is an Italian-American photojournalist, and she actually worked with Hynek for about 6 years with Alan Hynek in the early exploration of UFO activity and what it meant. She worked with Colonel Corso that wrote The Day After Roswell, right? And she had that published in Italian. She wrote the foreword with it. She interviewed and worked with John Mack. In my opinion, Paulo is the Barbara Walters of ufology. If you've been involved in ufology, you've been interviewed by Paulo Harris. It's quite remarkable what she has brought forward in terms of interview archives as well as photographs. And anytime you get a chance to hear her speak, I'm actually bringing her to Washington, D.C. to speak on Sunday, October 11th in Washington. And you can contact me via my website if you're interested in attending. Paulo is truly, truly a treasure, and she took over the UFO conference that was held in Laughlin, Nevada. If you have any kind of old timers out there that went to Laughlin to the great UFO conference that Bob and Teresa Brown did for years, that subsequently moved to Phoenix and become the International UFO Congress. Paulo has resurrected that, and she always brings in from her travels people from all over the world who are, coming together to share their extraterrestrial experiences. I really don't know any other venue within ufology or the ET community where you have such a broad representation of people from South America, Central America, Africa, all through Europe. I mean, she speaks many languages. She's always in Europe. She's always in South America. She literally travels the world and brings people then to the conferences to speak. So I hope your listeners, her website is starworks.com, and you can check out her conference there. I always teach at International Metaphysical University. I have a course there that's all about exoconsciousness, and I'm also starting a radio show as well as a webinar where I'm going to be doing exoconscious classes, kind of a classroom setting webinar where people learn information in a classroom setting, as well as doing interviews to talk about what it means to be an exoconscious human. I'm going to be doing that on the Project Camelot television network that's coming up. So those are just a few things I'm doing.
Excellent. Very, very exciting when you're involved with so much stuff. And the conferences are really important because they educate people. It's sort of the new education centers that we're doing because there's so many conferences happening all over the world. It's very exciting where people can take part in webinars. I'm even hosting some webinars coming up, Synergy, Oneness of the Elements. We're just, all of us trying to get the information out there that has been hidden, that's been kept secret, that's been, just kept under the rug because it just radically shatters everyone's reality of what they think is and what isn't. It really shakes the foundations, and that's a scary thing for people. What has some of your experience been with that, Rebecca? I'm sure some people over the years that you've talked to about this just totally shut down and don't want to hear it. I mean, what are some recommendations for you, for the listeners out there, of how to first maybe get into some baby steps, some stepping stones? Any books, any documentaries, any people you could recommend for new listeners that are really new to this subject of exoconsciousness?
Well, it's interesting. I had a huge awakening when I moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Washington, D.C., as you can imagine.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah, I was a little naive there. So I have to say that I'm just kind of, after 4 years, I'm settling in to these energies. I'm settling into this community of people who live in this Metro DC area. And I've had a lot of opportunities. I've learned so much here just about how extraterrestrial information and UFOs are perceived by the mainstream. And I got lots of stories about that too, as you can imagine. But yeah, where would I start? If I were to mentor or offer advice about that, I would say start where you are. If you had a UFO experience, if you had a UFO sighting, then find a hypnotherapist that you trust. Maybe find someone that's maybe been trained by Dolores Cannon, or a Barbara Lamb or a Mary Rodwell, and find out what that craft communicated to you when that experience happened. If you saw beings, I would say do the same thing, but I would also say start to talk to them. It's a two-way street. I know a lot of people who've had extraterrestrial experiences sort of feel like, oh, it was so vast, and I was so awestruck, and I've been awestruck too by different experiences, but I also know that ETs and extraterrestrial presence of all types, they communicate with us. It's like people that are psychic mediums. I mean, dead people talk to us. Dead people talk to humans all the time. Dead people are talking to humans all across the world right now. So, and a lot of times it's because people have asked to have a conversation with that person that's passed over, or asked to have a conversation with that ET. I would say if you're having an orb phenomenon, I would say communicate with the orbs. They're intelligent. They're an intelligent form. As I say this, I also would say learn about mind control. Learn about what's out there that plays with you. Learn about how things are distorted to put you in a place of fear. And when you go into that place of fear, step back and say, is this where I'm meant to be? Who's generating this fear? Does this fear belong to me, or does it belong to a mind control system that maybe I inadvertently have stepped into? Like you talked about at the beginning of your show, the Jedi warrior. Be aware of what is around you. You can't go into this field without learning about how your conscious mind is influenced by other people, by technology, by you yourself, how you yourself are influencing your consciousness, maybe shutting it down. It's about growing up and taking responsibility for managing your own psychic health. And I can't stress that any other way except to call it psychic health. If you're ingesting things or around people or around electromagnetic fields that are dangerous to you, get away, move, go live somewhere else. Break the relationship. At some point, it's almost like...
Excellent. Well, thank you, Rebecca. We're out of time right now, but your website is exoconsciousness.com, and also Rebecca Hardcastle Wright.com. Thank you so much for your service and everything you bring to the world, Rebecca, and hopefully we'll have you back on soon. We always have our Twitter feeds going with live news updates, and also from Ryan Matthew Durnick from Bellwether Post. And if you haven't received our free piece of Elite Shungite, give us a call or go to starseedtechnologies.com or you can call toll-free anytime at 888-400-2328. Again, that number is 888-400-2328. You can call anytime, 24/7. If someone does not pick up, just please leave us a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Again, we're handing out free Elite Shungite. It's an amazing quantum healing stone. I want you to have this stone. Please call us. We've been giving it out for about 6 months now. I'm going to continue to give it out because we've heard nothing but amazing stories from it. I drink Shungite water every day. You can hear it. That's Shungite in my water bottle. And it's amazing. Not just from hearing it from me, but from many guests over the last few months that have called and just have raved about it. So please give us a call, 888-400-2328, or check starseedtechnologies.com. And we'll also send you some information on free energy devices, how to build them. I have about 15 PDF files I would love to send you as well. And with that, we're going to get started with the show. But first, we're going to do our daily quote. And our daily quote goes a little something like this. All we got to do is stand up and it's game over. Short and sweet. All we got to do is stand up and game over. And it's game over. That quote comes from End Spire. And I'll post that up on starseedradio.com and also on our Facebook page. With that, we're going to get started with the daily download and see what's happening in the world today and how Mother Gaia is acting. And for that daily download, we're welcoming Ryan Matthew Durnick. Good morning, Ryan. How you doing today?
Very well, Jonah. How you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. It's Thursday, almost the weekend. And hump day is over, and we're more than halfway through the week. Lots of news all over the place. So let's jump into how's Mother Gaia responding today with Earth changes.
Well, solar activity is slim to nil. They're expecting a 1% chance of any kind of solar flare or geomagnetic flare that could be headed toward the Earth. But in regards to earthquake activity, there was a 4.5 just recently today at 95 kilometers southeast of Unalaska Island, Alaska. And that comes on the heels of a larger earthquake in the area, 5.9 magnitude, about 92 kilometers southeast of Unalaska, Alaska. So if you do the math, they're roughly in the same location. And then there was a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, 65 kilometers northwest of Guerra, Venezuela. A 4.9 magnitude earthquake, 76 kilometers southwest of Lata Solomon Islands. A 5.4, 26 kilometers west of Al-Qaeda, Yet Kiran, Munjan in Afghanistan. And
Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host, Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, good morning, Spaceship Earth. Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you could always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt, the Octurian Starseed, and today is Thursday, September 10th, 2015. We have a great show lined up for you today, joined by a very special guest, Rebecca Hardcastle Wright. And I also want to talk about a really awesome show we'll be doing tomorrow. We're going to do a special tribute for 9/11, for the families of 9/11, for the horrible terrorist attack that happened on 9/11 about 15 years ago. So we're going to have Peter Sterling on and Richard Schulman, and we're going to do custom music pieces and send out the vibration of love and light for the families around the world and for the families of 9/11. So it's going to be an awesome show. I hope everyone can tune in tomorrow. As well as you can check out starseedradio.com for more information as you can, so you can make the best decision for you and your family if a big event happens, or if even a smaller event, whatever happens. So
definitely
just raising awareness to be aware.
And in regards to the ongoing geologic activity, seismic activity in reference to Cotopaxi's volcano in Ecuador, when this volcano does erupt, and scientists are saying that it definitely will erupt, 400 people so far have for some time been evacuated, and more than 27,200 students have been relocated to schools outside of the danger zone. But when this does erupt, it has the potential to harm more than 300,000 people. And it could happen without warning and take out half the city in just 30 minutes, Jonah, which is mind-blowing if you think about how strong and how ever-changing the Earth and its dynamics are. And on to more other news in regards to Earth changes. More than 100,000 people have fled in Japan after a once-in-50 years flood from their homes. Helicopters were swirling over the muddy waters, rescuing people from the roofs off their homes. 17 were injured. And some areas received double the usual September rainfall in just 48 hours from tropical storm Atau, which swept across Japan's main island of Honshu. And some places the rivers swelled over their banks and burst their banks. And so there's many people that are missing in these areas. And north of Tokyo, was some people are feared trapped when the engulfed waters hit subdivisions there. Further 800,000 people were at one point advised to evacuate after the officials issued pre-dawn warnings of a once-in-a-half-century rains to 5 million people in areas east. A 4.6 magnitude earthquake 14 kilometers south-southwest of Guiron, Northern Mariana Islands. Now, as we've been talking about the last couple of days in regards to, you hear about all these earthquake activity they're talking about out west. There's going to cause a domino effect once the Cascadia subduction ridge goes off. Well, now experts recently, yesterday evening, suggested that Utah is unprepared for the possibility of a large earthquake. And they said that the research concluded that if a 7.0 magnitude quake hit the Wasatch Fault Line, it would cost the state about $33 billion in economic losses, and as well as about 2,500 fatalities and 9,000 injuries. And the research is being presented to the state's lieutenant governor on September 21st, and scientists said they hope that legislators will invest in better infrastructure to protect the communities and make sure that loss of life is averted, so that this knowledge is put out. Because that's basically what you and I do, Jonah, is putting out knowledge, increasing consciousness, increasing vibration.
And raising awareness, because, even though we cover earthquakes and stuff and fault lines, and the reason we cover that is because Mother Gaia, the planet, is changing, and she's growing, and she's breathing, and if you're not aware of this stuff, if a big event happens, which one is going to happen sooner or later, we know this, it always happens, it's planet Earth, spaceship Earth, we're flying through the galaxy, things happen, you got to be aware of it. If you're not aware of it, you won't be able to make the most, educated, correct, intuitive decision you can, which is why you want to know as much